podcast with Harpreet Pandey.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹਰ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਪੰਡੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।
Welcome back to another episode of the Heart Podcast. My name is Jagraj Singh Lalli, and today joining us, we have a very special guest. He's the manager of football operations for the Edmonton Elks of the CFL and has a pretty diverse background in both football and business development. Shahbaz Dhillon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
No, we really appreciate you joining us. So let's dive right into it. You know, you're entering your second season with the Elks, your first in football operations. Can you tell us about your main responsibilities of the role?
Yeah, it's a lot, to be honest. So in my role with us specifically, so football operations, what you would think of it. So managing all of the logistics for the football team, doing that, managing all the budgets, doing the forecasting. But on top of that, for us in our role, I also manage our salary cap. I do all of our player contracts. I do all of our roster moves, transactions. And then I've also gotten involved, thanks to coach and kind of like my willingness to just get stuff done and, you know, be there all the time. And also previous football knowledge is involved in scouting and the personnel decisions that we're making as well. Got to get my feet wet there.
The CFL has its own unique sets of rules, challenges. So how do you really approach managing the salary cap and player contracts within the CFL framework?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like in my role specifically, it's about being the cheapest guy in the building, which is like works out for me. So it's good. So like on my end, it really comes down to, you know, as we're trying to make a transaction, as you know, it's more in the off season where it really becomes like, okay, like where are we at right now? Can we sign this guy? Do we have this money? And it's, you know, Coach or Giroy Simon, our assistant general manager, Coach Jones, Chris Jones, who's our head coach and general manager. You know, they might come with, okay, this is a contract that we're looking to offer. You know, what does our cap look like if we do this and we make X corresponding move, right? So it's not just about in the moment, you know, adding information in as a contract gets done and, you know, updating the cap. It's saying, okay, so where do we project our injuries? Where do we project our roster being? If we make this move and that move, where do we end up in the cap? Because we want to be cap compliant at the end of the year.
The CFL schedule, it can be quite demanding. And I know even just talking to you the last couple of days, you've been very, very busy. So how do you manage the logistics and travel arrangements for the team to ensure everything runs smoothly?
Yeah, I think that part of it comes down to like just getting stuff done, right? Like it's like a lot of stuff comes up in the moment. So with the logistics and all that, I would say once you get kind of like the first game out of the way, the first game of the season, you kind of have like a, you know, process in place to put that across the rest of the games and the rest of the away trips that we'll be doing and whatever might come up logistics wise. But there's things that always come up in the moment. And I feel like that's the biggest thing is those things that come up in the moment. Can you figure it out and can you get a solution for it? Right. Like, you know, right now I'm in BC, we're in BC for a game. We just checked in a little while ago. We had issues come up that we were not expecting and things that were errors. And it's about, again, figuring out in those moments and just getting it done. So a lot of it is just, it's just that, right? Being available, being ready, being on your toes. I keep myself stressed at all times. Like I tell myself that something's always going to go wrong. And then that way you're always at that high level of kind of like getting stuff done.
The CFL, or, you know, I talk about the Edmonton Elks as well, and the city of Edmonton. It has such a rich history, such a passionate fan base, and I think we just saw part of it with the Oilers' run to the Stanley Cup final. How do you and the organization of the Elks in general engage with the community and maintain a strong connection with all those fans?
Yeah, so our community team is great. So we do a bunch of stuff in the community with minor football all the way to, like, you know, schools, public schools in the area. And then also, you know, the Punjabi broadcast is another thing that we've started doing, which you guys are doing in BC now as well. And with like Harpin guys, you know, we had them there last year to do the first one. So there's always like, we get out to like over 100 community events every year, whatever it might be, small events to big events, right? There's like the bigger events that, you know, at like major corporations where they're kind of like helping out or doing charity drives to, you know, smaller things. They're just visiting a school and we're doing readings and things like that. Or again, like the Punjabi broadcast, that's just kind of reaching out to a whole new community, right? And the reason why this is even happening right now, I think is like part of the reason that happening is part of the reason. So There's a lot the community team does. I'm not like like you mentioned, I'm in the team 2 years. Last year I had a lot more insight into it, a lot more kind of like I was on top of it. Now I wish I knew everything that we're doing, because we do so much that it's insane, right? But it's important because you want that younger core demographic, you want that, you know, different demographics to be part of fans, because I think we see in the CFL kind of, you know, that's what's needed right now.
Working closely with Chris and Giroy, what's like sort of the collaborative process in making those key decisions for the team?
Yeah, so I think in my role, because I'm just starting to get my feet wet, and I've built a very good relationship with Coach and Giroy and the rest of the staff as well. It's kind of like a little family down there, right? But you know, in terms of myself, it's, you know, if I see, because I'm still learning, my approach is kind of, if I see an opportunity, if I know something that I'm going to say is going to make an impact, or it's like it has real value to it, I'll bring that up in a decision that might be being like, hey, we're looking to maybe cut X guy or trade X guy, or maybe we want to bring in a certain position. When I get more involved, this right now for where I'm at, it's more of like, okay, we're looking at this position, and then because I'm involved in scouting now, it's like, okay, I have my list of guys ready at that position, and it's like saying, okay, here are the next best guys here available.
Any job doesn't come without its challenges, and what are the biggest challenges you faced in your role so far, and how have you overcome them?
Well, that's a good one. I think it's just I think honestly is getting used to the amount of stuff that happens, the amount of work for essentially one person, which is like, it's realistically like 3 people could be doing this and they'd be busy all day, right? But like, so it's about just being able to manage, just being able to multitask, and, you know, have 18 different things coming at you at the same time, and being able to manage those things and prioritize those things and keep everyone happy. So I think like the biggest challenge has probably been just getting accustomed to all the things that happen in the moment on top of everything that's already happening, right? So like, you already have your plan, you already have your schedule, you already know what's going to be going on and what you need to work on, but you know there's 10 more things that are going to happen in the week that you were not expecting, that are major things that need to get dealt with. So that's probably been the biggest one. But being able to multitask well and problem solve, that's like the biggest component of that.
Shahbaz, my final question for you. You know, you are at a place in the organization where you get to represent the Punjabi community, and you know we've had that saying go around for many years now that representation matters. So, for you, how special is it to be able to represent the Punjabi community at that level?
Yeah, it's a lot. Honestly, it's something I never thought about like years ago, or like even a few years ago. But now that I'm kind of in this position and kind of growing and building, like it's like, it makes me proud, right? It makes me very proud, like, because to me, like I view it as, it doesn't matter what you look like, what you sound like, what your background is, anything like that. It's all about, can you work hard and can you figure out things, right? And like that's what it comes down to. That's how I've always viewed it. But like being in the position I'm at now, like I think about the time like myself growing up and playing sports. Like I played hockey, I played football, I played basketball, I played every sport growing up. I'm from Oakville, Ontario, so it was a very different community culture, especially back then. So, you know, I wasn't used to ever seeing anyone playing any sports really that was Punjabi or any other color, right? Especially in hockey and growing up, and even football as well in that area. So that's, you know, that makes me proud, because I know it has an impact on people seeing that, okay, this person looks like me, I can do that too, right? Like this person is like me, I can do that too. Like I understand the value of that, and it makes me extremely proud, and it makes me work harder. It makes me want to get things done. So like I never fail to make sure that I'm always there as a piece for the community.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹਰ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਪੰਦੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।
You grew up playing in the Burlington Stampeders Football Program. What was that experience like for you, and how did it shape your love for the game?
Yeah, I think that was huge for me. I actually don't think about that too often, but like that, I think that lays the framework for everything, for where I'm at now, my passions, my interests. Like football to me is like I love football. Like I love football, and it started with playing for that Burlington Stampeders in the organization there, and like building my way up and growing, and and just playing different positions, being a crappy player to being a good player, right? Like growing and things like that. So I think like, yeah, if I really think about it, like that's the basis for everything, for where I'm at now, my passion for football, wanting to watch every combine and every NFL draft, every day of it, and like do my own analysis. Like it all started from there.
You know, there's the time where you play the game for a certain amount of time, and you know that time ultimately does end up passing, and after playing you transition into coaching and video work. When was the moment where you made that realization that my playing days are probably over?
Yeah, so I think I actually knew probably like when I was like 13, 14, like that's when I knew, okay, I'm probably not going to go pro as an athlete, right? I kept on playing for years, but that's the first realization I have. And actually take it back to, so I'm a diehard Raiders fan, NFL. They drafted Jamarcus Russell that year. And I just remember like listening to all the experts, and they were like, oh, he can throw 60 yards off his knees. He's the next great thing. And then he was bad, very bad, one of the biggest busts in NFL history. So ever since that year, I've been doing my own analysis. I'm watching every day of the combine, every day of the draft, making my own rankings. So I think that's been a massive, like that was like kind of like the beginning of it. But actually for myself, so I was not recruited to play football. I played at a tier 3 high school in Oakville, Ontario. Didn't have any film and didn't even know that like you needed film to send to coaches to get recruited. So I emailed every single coach in Canada that I wanted to go to school at that school, and said like, hey, these are my, my height, weight, strength. This is how I can run. This is what I can bench, etc. Things like that. And I ended up getting a few offers. I ended up accepting to go play at University of Waterloo. My recruiting class was 2010, which some people might know about. That year, they had a big scandal, and the program actually got shut down that year. So they had no program. I was like a month out from starting school, telling myself, okay, I'm just going to go to Laurier. I'll do the business program there. It's a good program, and I'll walk onto the football team. Unluckily for me, because of that scandal that happened, any player that wasn't involved in it was able to transfer to Laurier without sitting out a year. They didn't take any walk-ons. I didn't have a chance to go on and be a practice player, and then the rest is history. I just kind of stopped playing, and that's kind of where it went. But I think at like that 13, 14, that's when I knew and I found my passion for like the personnel side of football.
Now, football isn't the only sport you've ever been a part of, because you've spent some time with the Brampton Beast Hockey Club, the Toronto Wolfpack Rugby Club as well. How did your role with these organizations prepare you for your current position?
Yeah, I think it more so led me to this position in terms of like, that was my start in sports and on the business development side, kind of like you mentioned. So like I've been in business development, player branding, marketing, endorsement, sponsorship for my entire career, kind of like more of the sales side for my entire career. But I always knew that where I wanted to be, and it was on the personnel side of sports. And at the end of the day, it was to be in football. So having that background with the Beast and with the Wolfpack and building my sports background in business, that was able to get me a role with the team here in sponsorship as a sponsorship manager in their first season here last year. And then just, being here throughout the year, G-Roy got to know me. He brought me down with the help of the CFO. She wanted to, put me down in the role as well. She saw the value there, Vanessa. And ever since then, it's kind of just taken off. And like, I credit, not like I think I credit more so like the people that I've met along the way, right? There's a lot of people I've met along the way, even going back to like I ended up going to Humber College for sport management, professors, like different, coaches, different whatever it might be. Like even in Edmonton, like a month ago, I saw our old head coach from Brampton, Colin Chalk, who's now the head coach of the Condors for the AHL team for the Oilers. We were eating at the same restaurant, and we remembered each other. And it's been like over 10 years, right? And like for me, like that's important. It's like building those relationships. I think that was like a big part of it.
You talk about, that with that Wolfpack team. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit. And correct me if I'm wrong, you were a part of the team during its inaugural year. Yep. And so just what was that experience like?
Yeah, that was crazy. So that was like that was the first ever transatlantic pro team in sports history. So we played in a UK-based league. The team's playing out of Toronto. There was a lot of moving pieces. I think that actually that probably credits to like why I'm able to like work and like kind of fast paced, like multi, different things coming down. that's like one of the most unique experiences I'll ever go through, right? You're dealing with players that are all from the UK or from like Samoa or Australia or New Zealand. We're signing the best players across the world to come play in Toronto in a UK based league. And honestly, a lot of what I did was like more on the getting that brand out there and getting that name out there. And like, I think we created a strong brand in that inaugural. People loved it. People loved the logo. People loved certain things like that. Right. And I think that's actually where I got my first start of like getting more involved on like the player side and dealing with players, for example. So, there was a player, like one of the high profile players on the team. I helped him start a foundation, helped him make his logo and things like that. It's like whatever needed to be done, I was there for it.
Do you feel, we talk about education and how a crucial aspect that is into, what we end up doing later on as a career. You made mention you went to Humber College. How did education influence your career path in, your current role of sports management?
Yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to be in sports. So like I ended up going to Laurier. I did business there for a couple of years, and I switched to the Humber Sport Management program when like I started missing football way too much. I'm like, I need to do something with sports, right? So that's how I ended up going over there. So I think it's very big. I think like having an education background, like everyone has different opinions on it. I won't go too heavy into it. I have my opinions on it too. Like I'll call it a piece of paper, but I think it's an important piece of paper to have, right? Because it does open doors at the end of the day, and people do look for that. Like more so, it's not even more so of like, okay, like this means they're like this quality person. It's more of just like, okay, they at least have the understanding. They have like the patience to go through that and like get a degree and get that done and then move on to things. But like the biggest thing for me was, again, I think I mentioned like those relationships I made. There's certain professors that I still talk to this day, and I'll still reach out to for different things. And I'm grateful for those relationships.
Hey, you and me both, man. I'm a someone that wants to be a sports broadcaster. I'm currently doing sports broadcasting as well. And for all of those listening, education really is important. Actually, at the time of this recording this morning, I just graduated post-secondary for broadcast and journalism. So hey,
Nice.
it does end up working out sometimes. And I
It does.
know, Shahbaz, that you'll definitely agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. It does. I wouldn't have gotten my first opportunity in the internship with the Brampton Beast if I wasn't in that program finishing that degree. It would never came. So it is very important. It's a very important piece of paper, is how I describe it.
So moving on, moving on further into your role with the Elks, your current role, what are your goals and aspirations for the future in this role, but both personally and for the Elks?
So like number one is win a Grey Cup in Edmonton. I'm not trying to go anywhere until we win a Grey Cup in Edmonton. That's number one. But I think after that, like personal goals, like my dream, like since I was like that 13, 14, I mentioned, getting into like analysis of the draft and football and things like that. I'm a diehard Raiders fan. My dream is to be the GM of the Vegas Raiders now, but to be the GM of the Raiders. Like that's my dream. That's my goal. And that's where I'm still trying to get to. Right. And like short term, long term, I look at, growing myself within the CFL. If I eventually like an assistant general manager opportunity opens up and wherever that leads to and wherever the next thing leads to, that's kind of what I envision for myself is like on that personnel side of things and keep on growing and then eventually getting to the NFL.
I'm sure with the Grey Cup in Edmonton, a lot of the Lions fans won't agree with you on that one, especially with the Grey Cup being in BC this year.
Yeah.
And, Shahbaz, a couple more questions for you here. With the Elks, continuing the season that they are currently having so far, just I know you said you're a huge football fan as well. So from that sort of perspective, how would you assess the season Edmonton has had?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's almost hard to like differentiate now, like being down there, being on the sidelines, like the feelings that you get. Like, people talk about momentum in sports, but when you're on the sideline, there you literally feel the momentum within you when it changes, right? Things like that. But I would say that we're a very good football team and we're right there. And once we get one, it's just going to start rolling. Like it's just going to start rolling. Like we're a very good football team. We have the right people here. It's just about, finishing that chemistry portion of it and then just keep it rolling. Like it'll come.
Shahbaz, it's been a pleasure to have had you on the Heart Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend some time talking with us, and we hope to have you back soon.
Anytime.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Heart Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more exciting interviews coming up shortly. Until then, I'm Jagraj Lalli. Take care.